And with lights, it's basically, the rule is, the more lights you've got to play with, the more flexibility you're going to have in your photos or your video. So it works to your advantage. So we're going to look at a few things around why you want to get loads of light, how to place light to help you with different scenarios, and also how a non-pro camera with good light will perform amazingly well. So for example, we're thinking along the lines of a webcam, a mobile phone camera, a point and shoot camera. All of these things you can use to actually help you out, because in the end what will happen is you'll actually be able to get photos that look really good. So if photos look really good, it's down to having enough light for the sensor to be able to expose the photograph and show everything you're showing. So we'll use a few examples in terms of product photos. We'll use a few examples in terms of items, or if you're doing some bigger photographs like lighting, and how different times of the day help you as well. You don't want really big lights that take up lots of space. So let's have a look at these lights and I'll explain a bit about them. So what we're saying is these are a newer 2-piece bi-color LED light panels. I've actually got these in a pack of, I used three of them. I still use 2. I'm just doing some, I have a standing desk. I'm just redoing that, like as in standing live streaming desk. I'm readjusting that, so that will be interesting journey. So how these work is they basically shoot out loads of light, and they have barn doors, which are basically little black flaps on either side of it to allow you to try and tailor where the light goes. They don't really work that well. They spill light everywhere still. What I do is I get a soft box on them, which helps reduce the amount of light coming out as harsh light. You want soft light, and the more bigger the panel, the more output it will have, providing it's got enough LEDs, which is like a big thing that most people keep an eye out. So LEDs on this one, we've got 660 LEDs, and it's controllable by mobile phones. They give you all these fancy features which basically let you use your mobile phone to connect to the lights. So if they're positioned other way, you can just lazy adjustments, basically is what it's called. It's handy, it can help you, and it makes it easier to control the lights. However, there are additional options whereby you can look at additional light values. So there's a whole scale on these, like a CRI value, which is basically how bright the lights get, and you get numbers that range all over the place. The main thing here is going to be what type of light is it, what is the color of the light. Are you doing something that's important to be color graded? Then you need to keep an eye on the types of light that you will be using. So that's a look at like a big multi setup, wider panels. But sometimes these bigger panels will spill light everywhere. So if you want to focus it in like a certain place where someone's sitting, maybe you need to get some additional things or different lights to help you with that. Where I sit in my live stream, I like the light to light me and my desk, but I don't want it to light my background, because my background has its own lighting. So I want that to not be overpowered, because what will end up happening is everything's just going to be lit, and that's like, doesn't look as nice. If you have focused light on specific things, it makes it look a bit more defined and a bit more nicer. And if you're doing photos, maybe using flashes in terms of how much output they've got, so full power, half power, or maybe doing it full power but then having it within a diffuser, which then helps that light kind of be more nice to the eye, or nice to the camera lens, I should say, really. In addition to that, you can look at smaller lights. Like the ones that I look at a lot are these small panels. They're the size of like a little square. What would I compare this to? Like half a mobile phone, maybe a standard mobile phone. And they work extremely well if you're looking to concentrate light in certain areas. So if you're using a bit more of like a background light setup where you want to fill light in, that works quite well. And they're small panels, they're battery chargeable. You can charge them with type C, I think, or something, and they last quite well. I've had one come on for about 2 hours, and I've left it on by mistake, and it's on for 2 hours. It's a cell phone in USA. Mola Chut, where have you been, Mola? It's been a while. We've not had a Mola around. Where you been? Normally I see you on every stream, and every day I do a stream, and Mola's never commented. I'm like, where is he gone? Hopefully you're doing good. But yes, for the American people out there, cell phone. smartphone, mobile phone, cell phone, that device that does everything these days. And with these lights, they work nice because you can use them as like a bit of extra fill light like around objects, which is quite good because you can do different colors and little pops and things. So having 2 or 3 of these, they're fairly inexpensive in the grand scheme of things. You're looking at between like under $30 basically. You can even pick them for $22.95 at the moment Amazon, and they work well. There's different brands. You can adjust the brightness on them, and that there are RGB versions, which is basically red, green, blue, as well as separate lights altogether, which have a panel built in. So if I give you an example of like another type of light that has RGB built in, it's a bit bigger, wider I should say, and the lights are actually already in there, so you don't need to put filters in there. You can actually adjust the light on the fly between, well, different hues. Rusty's here as well. Everybody's coming in today. So that is basically like a big box that goes around the light, and it limits where the light's spilling, and it makes it a lot more nice, if that's even a word. Okay, so portable diffuser, strap attachment, cameras. You know, I'm not a big fan after discovering what I use now. So in terms of lighting, what do I use now? Well, I'll give you an example of what I use now, which is very similar to this setup here. So I've discovered the LED lights. They're powerful. They're okay. They're not great. But what does happen is when you're using them, it's like the light's just different. It doesn't look as nice. So now the Amaran 100 LED video light, which is like basically going into the slightly pro spec, not really pro, but a bit better spec. These are better video lights. They make your video look a lot more cinematic. You guys, that's not a good word, but the way they power you for video is, now that I look back at videos I've made using LED panels, comparing them to this light, is like, oh, okay, yeah, I noticed the difference. You can't quite tell until you see them and you're like, oh, okay, I can tell now that my old video was LED and this video is different. It's like a whole new, what's the word? It makes everything appear sharp. If like that's how it looks. That's probably how I would describe it. But that's not probably what it is. It's just how I'm describing it to you. But using these, you can add additional boxes on there, which then diffuse the light, and also honeycomb structures which drop the light exactly where you want it. So there's no overspill where you don't want it, if that makes sense, which then makes it concentrated on you, which then defines you in the scene, which makes it look sharper. A lot of speech marks if you can't hear it on the podcast. I'm using my fingers as I say each word. Yeah, so in addition to that, what kind of lights need diffusers? You get the Boyer mount, Boynut, what's the word? Boynut mount, bicolor LED. So in addition to that, how it works is you can add soft boxes on here, and these make a whole load of difference of how the light feels and looks in photos. So you think like domes, you got like actual, think of a hot air balloon, but in like a big fluorescent, transparent setup, and it looks like a big bowl. And the rounder the light, the more nice and smooth it comes out. Bowen's mount is what I was looking for. I called it Baynut. It's not Baynut. Baynut mount is the bulbs that used to put in the lights, as in home lights. Bowen's mount is like a type of mounting system that you flick, it turns on and it locks in place. So the lights are very good. I've used them in many scenarios, and they're like very well. You might be able to tell if I put this up. You'll see like the honeycomb structure in my glasses. You might see like, well, if you're watching live as opposed to listening. So yeah, we'll do a bit of looking at these lights and see if lighting is going to be a friend, because I reckon with the lighting setup, it's like you don't have to have anything too fancy. As long as you've got a good solid light and a nice diffuser, one of those will work wonders for your setup. Because I used to have 3 light panels before, which weren't as powerful as one big light. And what do you call these lights? What's the official term for these? Let me see if I can find a video light, app control, power made by Aperture. But like, is there a type of light so I can explain it better? I'll just call it pro photography lights, or production, filmmaking. It's not like actual, because these type of lights, the other ones I call LED panel lights, but this one I would call like a box dome light. It's like an actual unit, like a little bit of a power station thing. So you plug it in and you're good to go. There's a couple of models in them depending on how much power you want. They have inbuilt fans, some of them, depending on the model, which cools them down because they get quite hot. But it's like very, once I get the big studio, I'll start spending some of my millions now.